Today we celebrate the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi by listing 40 facts about the movie that you may not know. So let's go. The Ewoks were supposed to be Wookiees at first, but due to budget constraints trying to cast dozens of 6'7" actors and costume them, it was decided to cut them in half, and thus the Ewoks were born. This was the first appearance of Ian McDiarmid in the role of the Emperor. In The Empire Strikes Back, actress Marjorie Eaton plays the Emperor, although her voice was dubbed over. Nien Numb was a great character, and his African language is actually one spoken in Kenya. The dialect is called Kikuyu. The Rancor Keeper had one of the best performances in The Return of the Jedi, no joke. He was played by an uncredited actor, Paul Brook, although his voice was dubbed over by Ernie Facilis. Although Richard Marquand directed The Return of the Jedi, George Lucas first wanted Steven Spielberg, but due to conflicts with schedule and Lucas breaking ties with the Directors Guild of America, Spielberg could not do it. In The Return of the Jedi, Harrison Ford wanted Han to be killed off. Harrison thought that his character had served its purpose and wanted Han to get a heroic end to save his friends in the ultimate sacrifice. We know how the movie ends, but Harrison got his wish in Star Wars Episode 7. Spin-offs in Hollywood are awesome, but Star Wars also had its first spin-off with the Ewoks in an Ewok adventure, The Caravan of Courage in 1984. You can see it now on Disney+. The Rancor monster went through many design iterations of how it was going to be pulled off in production. The first was a stop-motion statue. The second was a full bodysuit, much like Godzilla. But finally, it was decided to make it a wireframe rod puppet that would be shot in high-speed film to make it seem like the Rancor moved like a 2-ton monster. The Max Rebo Band was the second musical group shown in Star Wars, and in Star Wars Legends, the entire band survives the attack on Jabba's barge, but sadly, they broke up. In Return of the Jedi, we got to see Leia in a metal bikini, and costume designer Nilo Rodis Jamero was inspired by science fiction artist Frank Frazetta. We saw Luke redeem his father in the climax of Return of the Jedi, but in story notes in the original script, Luke was going to defeat Vader, take his mask, and declare himself the new Vader and attack the rebellion. We're glad that didn't happen, and Luke stayed a Jedi. We got to see Anakin Skywalker for the first time in Return of the Jedi, and even though David Prowse played him under the suit, David was told he'd be seen without the mask in the final movie. But when it came time to produce the scene, it was thought that David Prowse was too young looking to portray Luke's father. So actor Sebastian Shaw was casted. We got to see Lando again in Return of the Jedi, but originally Calrissian's name was supposed to be Kadar. General Madine made his first appearance in Return of the Jedi and is sporting a questionable beard that looks oddly perfect. This was because when actor Demoy Crowley auditioned, he had a perfect full beard, but he shaved it to be in a London stage play. When he showed up to set clean shaven, they had to put a fake beard on him. We finally saw Jabba the Hutt for the first time, but he was originally going to be a stop-motion puppet, and the deleted footage that we know from A New Hope was going to be used as a reference plate for the animators to composite the puppet over. Luke got a new lightsaber in Return of the Jedi, and it's green, but it was supposed to be blue. It was changed to green in post-production because the color blue was getting lost in the blue sky in the Jabba the Hutt barge scenes. In the Sarlacc scene, we saw the demise of Boba Fett, and most people think that the first appearance of Boba Fett was in the cartoon shown during the Star Wars Holiday Special in 1978. But Boba's first appearance was actually months earlier, at a parade in San Anselmo, California. The speeder bike chase was one of the most exciting fast-paced scenes in Return of the Jedi and of all time. It was shot in the Redwood Forest in Northern California using a Steadicam and shooting at 1 frame per second. When played back at regular speed, it simulated top speeds of 300 miles an hour. Before Carrie Fisher was chained to Jabba the Hutt, actress Femi Taylor portrayed Oola, the Twi'lek dancer who got fed to the Rancor. 14 years later, Miss Taylor was asked to reprise her role for the 1997 special edition remake of Return of the Jedi. Kids in 1983 loved the toys from Return of the Jedi, and we finally got action figures that came with removable helmets for the first time. Figures of Princess Leia in bush disguise, 6 Ewoks that came with removable hoods, Lando Calrissian in skiff guard disguise, Princess Leia in combat poncho, and the Rancor Keeper. Some people want to include Ramba, Warrock, and Luke Skywalker in Imperial Stormtrooper outfit, but those came out 2 years later in 1985 for the Power of the Force toy line. Actor Mark Dodson played the voice of Jabba's pet, Salacious Crumb. He also voiced some of the Ewoks and voiced most of the Gremlins for that movie franchise. Most of Jabba's goons in Return of the Jedi were also seen in the cantina scene from A New Hope. This was for fan service, but it was also mainly due to budget constraints in the art department when they had limited funds to make new costumes. This was mostly due to Jabba's puppet costing $500,000 to create. The Ewoks were so popular with children that a cartoon was produced in 1985. During this time, marketing to children was deregulated, so companies could produce cartoons and market the toys to them at the same time. It's how toy lines like G.I. Joe and Transformers got so popular with children in the early 80s. The dogfights in Return of the Jedi's climax was amazing. This was due to the stop-motion camera technology getting better and film compositing techniques getting better as well. It's no trap. We got to see all the fallen Jedi together again at the end of Return of the Jedi, and a restored Anakin Skywalker as a Jedi played by Sebastian Shaw. This was updated in 2004 with Hayden Christensen. In the Return of the Jedi, Leia gets her "I know" line herself. This line was a nod to Han Solo saying that same line in Empire Strikes Back when Leia says she loves him. This line was actually an ad-lib from Harrison Ford. The original line was supposed to be, "I love you too." In Return of the Jedi, Luke wears black, and not the Jedi robes that were worn by Yoda and Ben Kenobi. This was because George Lucas wanted to show that Luke could potentially fall to the dark side and was conflicted by the lure of his father, Darth Vader. The Last Jedi cost $317 million to make in 2017. Return of the Jedi cost $42.7 million to make in 1983. If that number was in today's money, due to inflation, it would be $128 million. The Return of the Jedi was a fitting title for the last installment of the original trilogy, but the original title for the movie was Revenge of the Jedi. It was changed before the movie's official release because revenge is not the Jedi way, but not before merchandise was sent out to stores, and you can buy some of those items to add to your collection today. Star Wars films during their openings have been a pop culture event since 1977, and in 1983, Return of the Jedi made $374 million in its initial theatrical release. In today's money, that would be $1.1 billion. Not bad for a budget of $42.7 million. Return of the Jedi was given a wide release in almost every country that had movie theaters, but some countries banned this classic. Two of those countries were China and the former Soviet Union. Both of these bans were lifted in the 1990s. The director of Return of the Jedi, Richard Marquand, makes a cameo in the movie as the AT-ST driver in the Battle of Endor. Warwick Davis is best known for playing Wicket, but that role was supposed to have been played by R2-D2 actor Kenny Baker. But when Mr. Baker fell ill, the costume and part was modified to fit Mr. Warwick. Who was Prune Face? Well, his name is really Ori Marco, and he was shown in the briefing room. Yeah, very briefly. He is actually a spy for the rebellion, and after seeing the things that Cassian Andor has to do as a spy for the Alliance, I'm sure Prune Face is just as fierce. The Emperor uses Force Lightning to subdue both Luke and Vader in Return of the Jedi, but one draft of the script had the Emperor wielding a lightsaber. It wasn't until 2005's Revenge of the Sith where we saw Palpatine using a lightsaber. In Return of the Jedi, one of Jabba's goons, Klaatu, was played by Corey Williams, who is the son of Billy D. Williams, who plays Lando Calrissian. There was a ton of giveaways in 1983 for Return of the Jedi, but one of the coolest was for a child's speeder bike that was promoted by Kmart. Topps trading cards have been going since 1938, but in 1983, they made Return of the Jedi Topps cards showing movie scenes. These cards were popular with children since VHS cassettes and playback machines were so expensive. At the time, the average VHS player was $528. In today's prices, that would be $1,585. Return of the Jedi merchandise was everywhere in 1983, and it came in all forms, from toys to tape dispensers. And George Lucas owned all the merchandising rights. This deal was made in 1975, before the success of the original Star Wars movie, now called A New Hope. Back then, merchandising for movies was not overly profitable, but it was enough for George Lucas to finance every Star Wars movie until he sold it to Disney in 2012. The Empire Strikes Back and The Return of the Jedi are some of the most successful and well-received sequels of all time. At the helm has always been George Lucas, who took a pay cut from his $500,000 salary, and in exchange, he wanted the rights to produce the sequels as well as the merchandising rights. It was the best deal ever made, as he sold the Star Wars franchise to Disney in 2012 for $4.05 billion. And those were the 40 facts for the 40th anniversary of Return of the Jedi. If you found this video interesting, please hit that like button. That does support the channel. And please consider subscribing if you want to see more vintage Star Wars content from me. And as always, my friends, thank you, and I will see you next time. If you're new to the channel, check out the welcome video, or just check out the next episode. And please subscribe if you want to follow the journey. And remember, there is no shame in being a Padawan.